everyone. Welcome back to the MHP Show podcast. I'm your host, Derek Vickers. We talk about anything and everything that has to do with mobile home parks, trailer parks, the operations of them, the insane things that you will find and see happen in a mobile home park. We love talking about that kind of stuff on this show. And we're going to be real with you on this show. We're going to tell you all the lessons that we've learned and the things that, because this isn't exactly a passive business, as most people in this business, easily figure out. And so that's what we're going to talk about today on the show. And before we get into that, I just want to tell everyone if you could go check out that go.parkinvestingpro.com. If you haven't checked that out yet, that's the free masterclass that I started with the basics of mobile home park investing all the way up to underwriting and closing a deal. I go through all the basics. If you really watch that a few times and went over it and understood it, that's literally all the information you would need to have the confidence to go out and find your first deal. So check that out at go.parkinvestingpro.com. And then also, we just started a Facebook group. It's Park Investing Pros. We're active in that every single day. So if you haven't joined that Facebook group, just go on Facebook and search it. It's Park Investing Pros. All right. So now I have my guest this week. I have Mr. Tim Woodbridge here. How's it going, man?
Thanks for having me on, Derek. Appreciate it, man. I'm going to have to send people to, your way, whoever, it's like at least 5 times a week, someone's like, tell me about mobile home parks. And I created a short Loom video that I send people of the basics, because I kept getting the same questions. I'm just going to send them your way, man. Yours is probably better quality. Mine's off the cuff things I thought of when I was, just BSing around. So I'm going to send them your way.
Yeah, I'm sure yours is good, man, but send them my way, man. That'd be awesome. Do you have a stand-up desk?
I do, but I don't have it like.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, I'm
looked
sitting.
Like you were standing up. I'm like, yeah, it's one of my stand-up guys, because I typically have to stand up. So, anyways, man.
Wait, so you got one? You got the stand-up desk?
Yeah, dude, I love the stand-up desk, man. I gotta move around. I can't. Harder for me to sit still.
Okay, so on my last park that I just closed, I opened a bank account. And I'm in the banker's office and he's on a standing desk and I'm like, oh my God, that's such a good idea. And he's telling me about, he's my age, 38 or so. And he's like, yeah, I've had low back issues for the last, few years. He's like, my wife is a chiropractor and told me to get the standing desk. So I bought it. I just haven't set it up yet because I'm stubborn sometimes. So I'll get to it.
I understand. I know how that is, man. Yeah, and there's even some stand-up desks that you walk on, at 0.5 miles per hour or something while you're doing it. I don't know. I may have to try that one and see. But well, cool, man. Well, welcome to the show, dude. I always like to kick off the show and asking people, because it always leads to an interesting conversation as far as your the first entrepreneurial journey that you had. What was that?
A mobile home park. I'm pre-mobile home parks, pre-real estate. I'm not an entrepreneurial person. I don't want to do things other people's way. I want to go my own way, kind of, maverick sort of personality person. But man, I was a nurse for 9 years or so. I got my bachelor's of science in nursing because it's safe and because I like people and because I like human biology. But no, there was never oh, I could do this. I could do this. I could do this, and make a ton of money. That it wasn't there from me or for me when I was younger. But I went into nursing school. I thought, man, as soon as I'm a nurse, that's when all my problems are going to be good. I'm going to be rich. And then I was a nurse, and then I was like, oh, this isn't rich like I thought I was. It was a good job, and I did well, but it wasn't what I expected. And I mean, now I know that money, gets you to a certain point, but there's always going to be oh, I could be the next level rich. And so it's not oh, I need to get to that next level, as much as it's, oh, I need to adjust my way of thinking and my way of being uh, content with life. So, but yeah, anyway, I'm notorious, I feel, for going off track.
No,
You
it's
know,
good, man. No worries.
But no, like, so I moved to South Carolina. I started like picking up reading again and really just listening, Audible. And then, like, I remember I worked at Target when I was in high school, and I remember seeing Rich Dad Poor Dad, and like
Mhm.
something about it, it's just like, oh, interesting. I never read it, but like, so I moved to South Carolina. I start reading again. Oh, it's on the Audible list. Yeah, why not? I'll give it a try. And a lot of people say, like, oh, I don't know about all those things. I don't know how accurate that is. Whatever. The idea is there and it's amazing. And like, asset liability were new words to me at the time. And so it just opened my way of thinking. And from there, I just read
Mm.
more and more and more. And then, like, the entrepreneur way just kind of, I just waded into the depths of that and did it, a little bit more and a little bit more. And then bought a trailer park. And then I was like, oh shit, like, I'm an entrepreneur now. Like, this is, there's no boss. This is something that I've got to figure out and do. So,
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. And so, interesting, like, something you said there, like when you took the, you got a biology, you were a nurse, like you got a biology degree or whatever. I forget what degree that you said you had, but you talked about because that was the comfortable way and that was the easy way. And I had that mindset at the beginning. And so you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm curious as to how tough was it for you to break through that? No, I have to work a 9 to 5. I've got to make 100 grand a year with a stable salary job over to like uncertainty to a degree. Um, how difficult was it for you to do that?
I mean, so it was, I'm a super action taker, and like, I can tolerate a lot of risk.
Mm,
Um, but like, even then it's still like scary. I quit nursing 2 years ago without like I had some money in the bank, and I had not much cash flow, but I was like, yeah, I need to take the leap and do it. And so I did it, but it was scary for a solid year and a half. um there's a lot of like weird things, like with a job, it's, what to expect, what's going to happen, and then all of a sudden not having that, it's a very weird feeling, man. It took me a lot of time, a solid year to a solid, probably a year and a half, yeah, to like get into the flow of like, okay, like, there are no rules anymore, so I have to make the rules for my life, or
mm.
else it's a cluster and I'm just chasing, chasing cars, as it were. I'm just letting the chaos take over, and that's a crappy way to be. But you know, I'm glad I did. I'm glad that like I did it, and I had no freaking idea what I was doing. Because then, like, from there, like, the pain of being thrown around and like letting the chaos of life rule me has led me to be like, okay, I have to have structure. I have to like, it's not as structured as a job, but if I'm not, I have KPIs and stuff like that, where it helps kind of guide, what are the things that are going to move the needle, because there's always something else to do. I could
Mm.
not sleep at all ever, and I would always have something to do. So it's interesting though.
For sure, for sure. And did you have when you decided to take the leap? Did you have any parks yet?
Yeah, I had two parks. Yeah, I had two parks. So it was 2 years ago. Yeah, I bought my first park 4 years ago, and then 2 years later, I got my second park. But like, they're both value add. There wasn't any cash really coming out. I was more like, okay, I got a lot of savings, so I can live off of this, and I live lean. So I don't know. I was like, if I don't do this now, I'm going to regret it. In the same way that if I didn't move to South Carolina, I would have regretted it.
Yeah.
If I stayed in Phoenix, I would have regretted it. I didn't know exactly why. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that I didn't want to regret that when I was older.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's awesome that you did that, because I think that there's so many people listening, or even, that are, they're in their 50s and 60s and 70s, and they have that chance to either veer this way or veer that way, the uncertain way that could have led them to success and freedom and more happiness. And they don't do that. Right. And they don't do that because of fear, or the same fears that we felt probably when we were going through our 9 to 5s and things. But they decide to go the other way, which I guess is a, safer route, if you will, but not really. And so
No.
that's awesome that you did that. And I wanted to ask one thing on the you mentioned something about the cash flow of the parks, and I think this is important for people to understand. So you're new in the business, you're getting in, you're looking to buy a park. You're like, man, I can't afford this nice, 5 cap in a great location, tenant-owned homes where it's going to cash flow a little bit. But I'm going to buy this value add and hope that I'm going to get it to cash flow. But I've told people, like, yeah, it might cash flow a little bit, but your money's made on the refi, right? And so I'd love for you to enlighten our listeners on that. When you bought those first 2 parks, like you said, yeah, they're value add, they're no cash flow. Elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, so, I bought my first park was 10 of 36 occupied. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I needed to bring the occupancy up. But like, yeah, dude, I mean, we had like a capital line for like 15 grand, but like, man, I was working a nursing job. I was we got 7 legacy homes that I had to set up, and a lot of that setup went on my credit cards, man. Like, it wasn't it was barely paying the note, right? So like, it was producing no money, but everything it produced went straight back into the park. And yeah, I mean, man, there was a lot of sleepless nights getting stuff done and figuring out, how am I going to do this? I didn't know how, but like, I did it. I figured it out. But yeah, it's, the whole like cash flow, I get it. I love the idea. Like, I'm a long-term cash flow person, but I don't expect to see anything for the first year generally. Now, things change as I, get more experience and I buy more and I figure out how to make deals a little bit better and a little bit more creative and whatever. Sure, like, I'm expecting more cash flow, but I talk to newer people and they're like, yeah, I want to come into this and this is going to, cash flows, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I wouldn't count on it, Not saying it can't be done, but like, have a longer view than I need to get out of my job right now. I didn't quit my job for 2 years after buying my first park. And to be honest, I probably quit the job sooner than I should have. So I don't regret it, but like, looking back, yeah, I didn't have shit for cash flow. So like, I don't know, dude. I just enjoy mobile home parks, and I see the long-term view. So, but yes to refis and value add and pulling some money out, man. That's give me that tax-free money, please.
Please, we'll take it all day. We'll take it all day, baby. Yeah, and there's something to be said about, a couple of things that you said there. Because I know you say that you were like, okay, I got to do this to take the safe route, but you're an entrepreneur, dude. I can tell, because I'm the same way. If it's something that's going to grow my business, increase the revenue, or increase something in the future, I'll say, fuck it. I'll put it on a credit card if I don't have the money. I don't care.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't do that. They're going to be like, oh no, I can't. Oh my gosh. Like me, it's, even if I have to end up paying the interest on something at some point, I don't care, because if I'm going to make a couple $1,000,000 down the road, it doesn't matter. Right?
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, we could get into a rabbit hole about interest rates and people being afraid of shit. Like, God, this year I closed a park with a hard money loan. And then the seller carrying a lot in a second, basically. And like, people see hard money. It's 14.25%. Yeah, that is heavy, but like, what can be made? What's the long-term view? Like, what's the blended cost of capital I'm getting, which is, God, I want to say like 7.5% blended cost of capital.
Between the seller's note and the hard money loan.
So, don't just look at, oh my gosh, look at this high interest rate. Like, I in a different park. Well, actually, no, this is the same parks that we're talking about, actually.
So hold on a second. Did you, I just want to, so on that, so the seller was in second position. How much money did you have to bring to the table?
0.
I
know. So, yeah.
So let's talk about this deal. Keep going, man. Let's talk about
this. Okay. I'm hesitant to talk about it because everyone's going to be like, oh my God, I can get in with 0 down. It's like, yeah, dude, but
it's got to be the right circumstance for sure.
Yes. So like, if there was no value add, like, it's all about, okay. So let me back up. So I'd say something like that. If you're able to do it, you're doing it because you're solving someone's problem. You're not going in like, oh, how can I get in for 0 out of pocket? You're like, okay, what makes sense for the numbers? Because if I have to raise money, I can raise money, but that capital is expensive. It's more expensive than a seller carrying something at like 2%, right? So like, if you're new, if you're coming into deals, I'd say don't rely just on one thing. If you're like, man, I have no money, so I have to get this. It's like, no, use that as one tool. Maybe you can raise capital. Maybe you can do creative deal structure. Maybe like whatever. Just don't rely on it. I mean, I talk to so many people who are new and are like, they see that 0 out of pocket and they go for crappy deals. And it's like maybe not for your first one, unless you're working with someone else who's got a little experience. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cost of capital and cost of the deal. There's all these different levers to pull.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's like, we were talking about this on the show last week. Like, yeah, okay, it's a 0% money down, but there's some money being brought to close. I mean, there's like, you're paying for closing costs. I'd have to imagine this was a value add deal. There's going to be capital that you need to bring to the table. Maybe you can get that via hard money loan or whatever, but there's going to have to be some, cash brought to close. And you're not going to get, a 3-star even park that's all tenant owned homes. Like if the seller has, if he's got tons of equity in the deal and he does want to sell or finance, like you're not going to get 0% down. Yeah. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Well, okay. So go back to solving the seller's problem, right? So I always think, this isn't a me versus you thing. Well, this is a us versus the problem of you wanting to sell. And my problem is I want to buy. So let's get on the same side of the table. Let's look at these numbers, man. How can we make this work? Like, so many people complain, oh, sellers, like they didn't go down on their price, and look at interest rates. They're so high right now. How could they want that same price? I'm like, bro, you would want that same price too if you're selling. Don't be hating on that shit. Accept it. And like, how can you make their price work? Like, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe that deal's just not for you. I was talking to a broker friend who I was looking at a deal he was trying to sell. We've bought 2 deals from him this year already. And I was like, I see you keep posting about this or emailing, right? Email blasting out. I'm like, when are y'all going to sell to me? And he's like, well, when you come to this price. And I was like, I mean, we already talked, so it's not like he was snarky about it. He's like, this is just what they want right now. And I was like, not every deal is for me. Some deals are for someone with a lot of 1031 money. Some deals are for someone with a lot of capital to place and they don't need the same returns. If I'm doing all cash at close, I've got to get a bank loan and I've got to give investors a pref payment. So that deal's not for me. And that's all right, man.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a great point too, because you see some of these deals and then they trade that came across my desk. I'm like, man, how did these people make this deal work? Well, maybe they had 1031 money. Maybe they have a bunch of cheap capital. You never know. Like they could be buying for different reasons. They may have a portfolio in that area and this, 3.5 cap makes it better, right? As crazy as that sounds. But
then they package it. They package it and they sell it for, they make money. So.
They do. They do. And that's, it's a loaded question. I get a lot, what makes a deal good, but it's very situational depending on what situation you're in. It depends on what situation the seller's in and like where you're at in your career. And, I think that's a great viewpoint that you have there. It's just, I'm taking something away from what you just said. That's like, hey, I even need to get on the seller side more because I would want, $5 million for this deal if I was the seller. And so how do we put ourselves in those shoes to make the deal work? And I love that viewpoint, man. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, a little empathy goes a long way. What's Chris Voss say? Tactical empathy.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to agree, but you just understand where someone's coming. And like, same with, I tell people, I'm like, dude, I only go through brokers. Not because I hate talking to sellers. It's just, I'm not good at marketing. And I love working with brokers because, they have already done the legwork. They have people who want to sell. And, sometimes I'll talk to people and they'll be like, oh, I don't want to talk to brokers. They're always messing up the deal. It's like, no, they're not, bro.
No.
Like they just want to get stuff done. Like, their thing is they want to broker a deal. They want to get the deal closed and they want to, they want to make a commission. They want to do right by their client. So like get on their side, understand where they're coming from. Sometimes they're gatekeeping because you're new and you're putting out this egregious offer. Like, of course they don't really want to waste time on you. So, I mean, understand where they're coming from and try to serve them instead of like just take.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a great viewpoint for people to assume that are listening to this, because there's a lot of, and I've even talked about stuff, getting deals with no money down and things. And you can do that just like Tim did, but it's not totally common, but you have to get on the side of the seller and see what makes the most sense for them. I've talked to guys and they send me deals and like, the returns that they're trying to raise money for the deal. And these are like newer people, which I understand they're so lopsided towards them. I'm like, all right, put yourself in the shoes of the investor.
Yes.
And if I'm investing $1 million and I'm only getting 700, like not much of like the deal is just skewed, right? And you have to do that with your investors too and get in on their side, and the deal's got to work for everybody. So I think it's a good viewpoint to assume.
Yeah, and with those first few deals, I was definitely in my head. It was skewed. It was like, how much can I make with this? And the game changer for me has been like, to hell with what I'm going to make. And it's not to hell with what I'm going to make, but it's like, I'm confident that if I keep everyone in mind and see how I can make this work for everyone, then I'm going to do very well. If I, can solve the seller's problem, if I can solve keep the investor return in mind of like, 16 to 20% AAR, 2x equity multiple in 5 years, and like just make sure that they're getting taken care of, I will get taken care of. Like that's, I'm long-term bullish on mobile home parks. I just want to get these done and get everyone great returns, and I will get great returns.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an awesome way to look at it. I think that's a great tip for our listeners here. And so I just saw that you closed on another park recently.
Yeah, dude. Number 10.
Was that the no money down deal?
No, that the no money down deal was the Georgia deal.
Okay.
So it was creative deal structure and everything. It was just in a different way. But no, some money down, but not as much as you'd think.
Yeah. So can you tell us anything about that deal? Like, what was the lot size? What'd you pay for it, and how'd you structure that deal?
38 lots, 1.6 million, bank loan, seller carrying an equity position in the operating agreement, and which, greatly reduced our cash needed to close. I mean, okay, so anytime you can bring less cash, so it's all like cost of capital, right? So like if I can pay more to a seller and have them carry some at 2%, my blended cost of capital is less than like if I have to raise that much money from investors.
Right.
So, it's all like how can this work best? So like I give sellers like different offers, and I'm like I don't mess around. Like this is my highest and best from the get-go. It's not like I bake in a little bit for negotiations because
Sure.
well, that's the game, whatever.
Yeah.
But like not a ton, So it's like here's pretty much what I can do. If I get someone to agree to something creative, I don't retrade. So instead of like, okay, you can get, you'll get this much percentage, you'll get 65% like at cash at close, blah, blah, blah. It's more like, okay, like I'm not going to retrade. I'm not going to try and get this for cheaper, but I'm probably going to have to give you less cash at close and have you carry more. And it's all, numbers, likely numbers. And I mean, I've been doing this a little bit, so I know pretty likely numbers in terms of things and business plans and stuff like that. But I still stay very conservative. I can come in zero out of pocket, but I'm definitely like, okay, I'm not going to make any money on this for a year at least. But like my number one thing. So you got your NOI, and then you got your debt service, and then you got whatever debt service to the seller, and then investor pref, right? So I was just talking to someone, and they're saying, oh yeah, this one group, they have a 6 pref, and it's like they're never going to make the pref. And that blows my mind, dude. Like to not make a pref, exactly. There's like, oh, like, well, the pref is accrued, so we don't have to pay this to you quarterly like we said, but like it accrues and we'll give it to you on the back end. I'm like, bro, like for me, treat the pref like it's just treat it like it's a loan, it's a have to meet it. Don't mess around. It seems dishonest to not do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You definitely have to, and that's a good way to look at that as well. I had a question like so you said that on this particular deal, the seller left equity in the deal. So how did you he left 20% in, 10%, or how did that exactly work?
So let's see, 25%, I think. So just wrote them into the operating agreement. It's like he gifted to the company. So started a new LLC. The LLC is owning this company. We got a loan through Vanderbilt. And he gifted the company, in the operating agreement. The operating agreement says, okay, he gifted this much, he will be paid out and at like refi, and he'll get like this much interest, like 2% interest or something.
Okay.
People say, oh, I can't offer 2%. That's too low. It's like, well, like what's your alternative? Like I could give 5% interest, but like maybe a few $100,000 less. Like it's all numbers.
Right. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'd never really thought about doing some deals that way before. You got me thinking about a deal right now. I'm like, here's a different way I can structure it with this guy, because this guy's like freaking, oh my gosh. I think he like, we're playing games with negotiation here.
Yeah.
In one vein, he's like, oh yeah, no, I don't even have to sell. But then like in 2 sentences later, he's like, oh, well, I'm sick of going to this thing every day. Like, oh, okay. Like something's off here.
Yeah. Is he a RV park owner in Georgia by chance? Because I was speaking to one of those.
No, no, no.
He's a great guy, and he's like, I was talking to the brokers. They're like, oh, he needs to sell. Like, he's great at creating these parks. He doesn't like operations, and so I'm talking to him. They gave me his number. They're like, just call him up,
Yeah.
And so I call him, and we had a great conversation. And he went from, yeah, my wife really wants me to sell, and I'm spending too much time here, to like, oh well, whatever. If I sell, but like I got to get my price. This is probably a really great park for someone who's like, they just got a lot of money that they want to place, and it's great returns. And I'm like, look, bro, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to get on your side, but like you're flip-flopping too much for me to keep up with.
Yeah, I think it's like I don't know if it's like a psychological thing or some negotiation tactic that they're trying to do. They're like, oh, okay, well, I understand that he's trying. Oh no, but I don't even have to sell. It's like I got to get this price, but I don't need to sell.
Yeah,
I think it's something.
It is. It's like something caked into society. Probably it's like, oh, I can't admit defeat because this is a me versus you. So I'm just like, when he said that, I was like, okay, man, well, like, I'm probably not your guy, to be honest. And we ended the call, friendly. And I called the broker, and I was like, he probably needs a little bit more massaging. And I'm not trying to beat him up. I'm totally trying to give him his price. I'm just trying to get creative, but he might need a little bit more time. So, but it's fine.
Yeah, yeah. So we were working on the deal, and seller wanted like, I don't know, 2.5 million or something. And we come in 75 grand within his asking price, which is close to retail.
Good. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We send him the offer. We get back with him, 4 days later. And he's like, he's basically flipped completely. He's like, dude, I got to get 4 million for this deal now. He's like, oh yeah, the city's going to come and buy this and blah, blah, blah. And so my guess is that he went to the local watering hole with his buddy who's, 75 as well, 10 drinks in, and they're like, oh, I got an offer at 2 million. Oh, you can sell that for 4. The city's going to come and buy that. Whatever, dude.
Then hold it. You know what? Like, I love that for you. I really hope the city comes and buys it for 10 fucking million from you. How about that?
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you to get a better offer than I can make, because I would love that for you.
Yeah. Or the guy who's like, oh yeah, I think Walmart's going to come and buy this one day and develop it. I'm like, dude, the property's 3 acres. Like Walmart that's not even the parking lot for Walmart.
Yeah. It's the new mini Walmarts they're making, I'm sure, right? No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty comical dealing with these guys sometimes, because and I get it. I mean, you've owned the park for 20 or 30 years. It's got an emotional attachment. So you get a little emotional and you do weird things and say weird stuff when you're going through these negotiations. So I get it, but it's funny, man. It's funny.
Yeah, I like it, dude. There's always interesting stories, I love stuff like that. And like, I was talking to another guy recently who's relatively new, and he was like, man, I'm really trying to make this deal work, and like I don't know. So this was on a single family, actually, and I don't know shit about single families, but we were talking about creative deal structure, and I was trying to help him, and he's like, man, I've been working on this deal for like 9 months. How do I not let him go with someone else? And I was like, tell me, what other deals do you have in your pipeline? And he's like, well, I got another one with the same guy. And I was like, anything else? He said, no. I said, wow, that is your problem. That's your problem. You're too close to this one deal because that's all you got. And that's why you think like you need to keep it, If like I said, go out, look in your city that you're looking at and make offers on all these other deals and make it so it's not the only thing you're thinking of. Because more than likely, you're going to have to walk away from it. And that's fine. There's another, okay. A mentor of mine says, when one deal's gone, the next one's like 5 minutes away. It's on the next bus stop or whatever. So, don't,
Yeah.
don't hold on too tight because you'll never get something closed.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was a Grant Cardone sales training I did, and I took this I'm like, oh damn, it's like his thing was like the only reason that you're feeling rejection right now and feeling like shit right now is because you don't have enough in your pipeline. And I'm like, that's right, because if you had 20 other deals, you're like, oh fuck this guy, I don't care. Like I got 20 others here coming up, and so I think that's super important for people to get. You got to have more deals in your pipeline. You can't just get stuck on one guy that's been dicking you around and dragging you through the sand for 6 months. You just got to, you can still work on that deal, but you can still work on the deal, but don't make that the only deal that you work on, because you're going to have your head in your hands when it doesn't happen and somebody comes in and pays his number and moves on.
Yeah.
So,
and you're going to question yourself, what did I do wrong? It's like, no, bro, it's just probably not for you.
Yeah.
Move on.
Just move on. So what do you, you said you're bullish on the mobile home park business generally. So what do you think, the next 5 or 10 years looks like for this business?
I mean, I see the need for affordable housing. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But I know that this is the space I want to be in, whether it's mobile home park or something similar, affordable housing. There's that need, right? So I see the long-term need. I want to be part of the solution to the long-term need. Right now, mobile home parks is what it is. And I hope, I think for the next 5-10 years, I'll buy something, I'll pay a few $100,000 more if I can get good terms and not negative cash flow on it. I will hold on to it for 10 years and I'm going to make a killing. I know that. Or I'm confident in that, right? So that's kind of what I'm doing right now, man. I'm just like, okay, let's make a deal. I want to buy as many of these things as possible and just hold them long term. Yes, I'm going to make a killing, but also, yes, I think the need's just getting stronger and stronger. The more time goes on, the more you look at, you look at society, you look at how things are, you look at world economics, blah, 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 read a lot from people smarter than you. And I'm like, okay, long term, this makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you. And I think, now that, 8% rates, the cost to, a $500,000 house mortgage was whatever in 2020. Now it's, quadruple that.
Yeah.
And so, people can't afford houses now, and even rent's gone up. So I don't even know, the affordable housing thing, it's a definite crisis. I mean, it's 100%. I went to a conference in Miami at the beginning of this year. I'm like, fuck, man, I don't know how people live down here and work in this hotel that I'm staying at.
Yeah.
And pay the numbers that I know people are paying in rent. I'm like, they must be shacking up with 2 or 3 people to afford $3,000 a month, which is probably happening. And, politicians and things talk about, oh, we need to solve affordable housing. But what is the solution to? I don't know, because you can't build another mobile home park. I mean, there's some being developed in some places, but the places that are being developed aren't necessarily the epicenters for the affordable housing crisis. I can't go down to Tampa and develop a mobile home park, a 200 space park, where it would be okay, that would actually help, 200 families in there get access to rent below $1,000.
Yeah. Not in Tampa. Not those damn trailer parks.
Oh, I know, right? No, not those damn trailer parks in Tampa for sure, or even any other MSA, right? Any large city. So I don't think anybody yes, we're the solution, but what is the real solution? And I don't know that, but that just makes the economics work in our favor in buying these things,
Yeah. And I mean, so I love needing more affordable housing is such a friggin' talking point. for both sides, right? I don't give a shit. I think both sides have good and bad and whatever.
Sure.
I think it's all. My dad always used to say they're all crooks, right? And
He's probably not wrong.
I
He's
know,
probably
I
not
know.
wrong.
So like whatever, man. I can get along with whoever. I don't care about whatever your politics are, whatever your beliefs are. I think everyone's kind of, they just want to be happy. They want their family to be happy. But whatever. Like, it's such a talking point of like, well, we need more of this. It's like, well, what action are you guys doing? Like, that's what I don't like, is people talking and not taking any action. It's such a fucking waste of time to me.
Politicians do that? No way.
I know. I came on this to surprise you. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's, I saw a post on Instagram where somebody was talking about this, and he was like, hey, man, get ready for the political season. They're going to feed you all this bullshit, both sides. It doesn't matter. And you're going to get all excited. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, this is the guy. And then they're not going to do shit. So
yeah.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, I'll just be here buying mobile home parks.
Yeah, we'll just be here buying mobile home parks, and So what do you think about, Jerome Powell came out, yesterday, they're going to keep rates the same, and he hinted at, lowering of rates going into 2024. What's your thought process on that, or is that changing the way you underwrite deals, or?
Not really, dude. So when I closed this last park, I got it under contract, and I talked to a loan broker, and he went to Vanderbilt, and he came back to me. He's like, what are your expectations? I'm like, dude, I don't have any expectations. You tell me what they're going to lend at, and then I'll make that work. So, I mean, everyone, oh my God, there's going to be like, I can't change the future. I don't know what's going to happen. I know what's happening today. And sure, I mean, in the future, maybe it'll be lower, maybe it'll be higher. I don't know, man. I'm going to buy and not negative cash flow ever. And that includes pref payments. That's again, in what I figure in my loan, basically. But I'm not going to negative cash flow. I'm going to cash flow positive from day one, at least a little bit, and maybe not in my pocket, but into the operating account's pocket, because
Sure.
you gotta save some money. You gotta have some reserves and stuff like that. But I'm going to make stuff work. And if interest rates get better, I'll refi. If they don't, I'll just continue to hold. Like, I don't lose sleep over it. Some people do. It's just whatever, man. Like I have that one park with a hard money loan of 14.25%. So it's like, why be afraid? Like, let's figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the people that are afraid are the people with, floating rate debt, and it's coming due, and they're, in a tough situation. Even if they lower rates, 3 times next year or something at 25 basis points each time, it's not going to make that big of a difference. Like, it's just not. So,
well, then I'm happy that I bought so much this year in higher interest rate times, because if I can make it work at a higher interest rate, then the lower interest rate is just, the cherry on top.
Right.
I'm glad I didn't buy a whole ton at 3% or whatever, 5% floating, and now it's coming due. And I'm like the guys in Houston who foreclosed on whatever giant multifamily properties they foreclosed on. You know, I'm glad I'm not in that position. I'm not losing sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely a good outlook, because, it is what it is. We can't change that, and we don't need to, at least I don't. Doesn't sound like you do either. And like, we don't need to stress out about things that we can't control. So, dude, Tim, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with before we get out here?
So do things that move the needle. There's a million things you don't need to do. Or, there's a million things that the world is going to try and make you do. Figure out the 2 to 3 things that move the needle and get you closer to your goal. And I don't mean goal destination, because you should never hit that destination. The goal should always be a little bit farther. But like, do the things that are going to move the needle. Do the things that are going to make you uncomfortable.
Yep. Yep. And those are the uncomfortable things are oftentimes they coincide with the things that move the needle. They do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So awesome. Well, Tim, thank you for coming on the show. I've enjoyed talking with you, man. I appreciate it. If you guys want to find Tim, where can people find you?
Let's see, Tim Woodbridge on Facebook. I'll send you the links, or it's like Tim Woodbridge and then a string of numbers. I'm not fancy, right? I'm Tim.Woodbridge on Instagram. Yeah. I mean, if you're interested, let's talk. I really want to hook up. So one of my goals for next year is to close 6 deals with people who are new to the mobile home park space, but who are excited, right? Who got the hustle, who are excited, who want to make stuff done. Like, I want to close those deals with people because, that's meaningful to me.
For sure.
So like, if y'all are interested, man, hit me up. I love having conversations. I love helping. I'm, again, very bullish on the mobile home park space. So yeah, I mean, let's get stuff done, dude.
Yeah, awesome, Tim. Well, thank you guys for listening to the MHP show. We will be back. We're still every week here. Go check out go.parkinvestingpro and our Facebook group, Park Investing Pros. Check that out. Join the group, and we will see you all next week. Peace.